Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome our Spotify audience, iHeartRadio audience, um, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeart Music, Twitter, everybody over at Facebook, everybody over at the NSC Roadshow. Man, you guys go check out the Roadshow. All the different shows in the Roadshow are all participants in moving creators around and getting them to talk about everything and share their stories. So we're really proud of everybody putting all the work in the Roadshow. And tonight we're going to have some fun. And it's my very it's a privilege really to be able to do this, to be able to bring back somebody that really inspired me and my trajectory of life and many others along the way. And also too, it is our 1 year anniversary show. Believe it or not, Comic Rider turned a year old the 15th of this month. And I'll be turning 49 the 24th of this month. So we're all kind of having birthdays this month. So it's a lot of good fun. This is our 42nd episode. So we appreciate everybody listening, supporting, all the creators coming on, everybody tuned in, all the other podcasters that simulcast us out. So we just want to say a big thank you. And we're going to have a lot of fun this show. And this show, without further ado, is going to be about your friend and mine, Morris Fuselier. And everybody knows him as Mo. And has touched thousands and thousands of lives over the years, and we'll kind of run back through some photos and some throwbacks and have a good time. So, without further ado, let's get this party started. Again, welcome, everybody. This is going to be a fun show, shot here right in Fallout Studios. So I'm going to throw up a couple pictures to reminisce for a second, and then I'll bring on my guest co-host for tonight, and then we're going to kind of run through a few things. But a lot of you know our guest of honor from this shot right here, or a lot of you know it from the other way because you're actually in the on the field themselves. But this is one of the different things that the Ram band was associated with, and then there's another one is us all up in the bleachers having a good time. But again, this is stuff that from the late 80s, early 90s that we got a chance to learn about art and music and all those good things. And that's something that I think that Mo really inspired in me. And he's picked it back up, man. He's back in there. He's got his brushes out. He's got his paints going, and we'll wait till he jumps in here, and then we'll kind of walk through one of the paintings that really kind of caught my attention. And we'll just kind of walk through some things, and I appreciate everybody coming out. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my guest co-host for tonight, who is one of the co-members of the Black Watch, which was our drum corps back in the day. So when he pops back in the green room in a second, we'll bring on Tommy, and Tommy's out in LA, and to his own accolades, man, he's been tearing it up in the music business. So it's cool to see that he's still with music and having a good time. So we'll go ahead and jump over. Let's see. I'll go ahead and bring Mo in, then when Tommy comes back in, we'll bring him in. So without further ado, let's bring on the there he is. There he is. What's happening? You're
Hey.
This is again my co-member of the drum corps and still a good friend of mine. And like I said, just making his mark in the music world, Tommy Shepard. And so where are you at? You're at in LA, or you're out in California, right?
Yeah, I'm in California. I'm in the Bay Area.
Okay, in the Bay.
Yeah, San Francisco, Oakland.
Nice. I was out that way about a couple months ago. I was out I didn't touch down, was in the airport, and was right back out. So, but I've got family out that way. So when I get up that way, I'll look you up because we're supposed to go here when it warms up a little bit. So
great.
Well, let's bring
around. How you been?
Man, it's been you can see the gray. The gray is earned. I'm still in the art game, man. Having a lot of fun. I've got a chance to meet so many great creators, and it's been so many big names in the business as far as helping other creators. And we travel around from different Comic-Con to another Comic-Con, and just meet people, get the word out, get their books out there. So I started an agency a couple years ago. It's called Ink Studios, and we're just having a blast, man. Just still in the game. I
Oh,
started drawing again, man. It's I had to dust off the rust, the old, on the wrist, man. So
sure. But I
back.
remember.
Oh, it's been a minute, but it's a lot of fun. It was good. I got talked back into it. One of our clients saw some of the stuff I had done. Said, "Man, why are you not back in the game? You got some chops. Why don't you get back with it?" So
Mm,
he talked me back into it. So
nice.
I got to give him credit. And then we travel around, like you see the stuff. But this is behind me is what we call the inked wall, and that's a lot of the books we help produce by marketing the different clients out there. And then we got a chance to hang out with Flash Gordon here a couple years ago, and that was pretty fun. Um,
Nice.
he is Sam Jones is Flash, man. He don't even have to act. That's just him. So straight up.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, that's what we get to do. That's what we get to kind of and again,
Sounds
as I mentioned, we were talking in the green room for a second, and Tommy has been nominated for three. It's his third time to be nominated for a Grammy. So man, he's making his mark in the world. Let's
yeah, we're doing it. Do
yeah this
like social justice, kids music, and yeah.
yeah you have to you need we'll have you on the show sometime. We got another show called Voodoo Lounge. That's what the backdrop you see right now. This is part of one of Mo's paintings. So when we it's kind of been the theme for Voodoo Lounge.
Oh,
So
right up.
we'll have to get you on the show. And that show we talk a lot more music. So we'll definitely have you on. We'll
Oh,
that'll be the one, man. So let's bring
word.
on our guest of honor and let's reminisce.
How y'all
There he
doing?
is.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, how y'all doing, Tommy? I told
Hey.
Kevin there last time I saw him he couldn't even shave, so
Mm,
he's kind of caught up since then.
Yeah, yeah. This is
yeah. Nor I.
and this is yeah
Absolutely.
this is about a year, man. This is only about a year, and the wife liked it, so I kept it.
Mm,
Um,
There you
this all kind of started
nice.
with the way my wife and I met. We met 5 years ago, and there was, of course, she's getting bombarded with pictures, and that's funny enough how we met was on Facebook. So I sent a picture and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you when you have a second." And she kept going back to my picture. She said, and she said I looked like Opie off of Sons of Anarchy.
go.
And at the time, I only had a little bit of the beard. I didn't have the full thing going. So I gotta if there's a person to look like out there, I guess that's not bad.
There you go.
So we met him
There it
in
is.
Atlanta about 3 years after that, and I said, "You got to tell the story. You got to tell the story." She's like, "No, I'm not going to tell him that." So he's a big dude, though, man. He's like I'll come up to his chest. I mean, it was kind of wild. We got pictures together, and of course, showed we look a lot alike and stuff. But tell us, you know, we all got together, and again, Mo was our teacher back in the day and our drum corps director, and Tommy and I were drummers back in the late '80s, early '90s, and it was. I really feel that. I mean, I
Yeah.
was already into
Which is just
art.
wild seeing you right now. It's crazy.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
I told him, I said, Mom, I said, I'm actually older than you were when you were teaching us now.
Tell you what, that's kind of
So
crazy.
that
Yeah.
kind of warped me for a second. I said, whoa, I got to kind of put that
Ah,
in perspective. Um,
yeah, it's been a
Wow.
while.
Wow.
it's been a minute, but he's back into it. He's been drawing a lot and painting a lot. And there's a couple pieces I'll bring up here in a second. He can kind of walk us through.
Sure.
But it was it's one of those kind of things. Like I said, I was already kind of going down that art path, but it really kind of solidified with always hanging out and talking and doing stuff because we spent a lot of time with this man,
Yeah.
and was always real open to talking
Mm,
art, talking music, um, and inspirational in that sense. Just the way he did things and the way he was with us. He was our friend. He was our teacher and our friend, and I'm proud to say that because
totally.
not all teachers are like that. And so I thought we were very fortunate and very, very blessed to be able to do that. And I think he's out there in California as well. I'm the only non-Californian in this group right now. I'm out here in Washington. That's about as close as I got. So
Yeah,
we're all a long ways from Westlake at that point.
yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But here's a couple more kind of blasts from the past, real quick. A couple people that weren't able to make the live. that wanted to definitely say hi. And I'll play these real quick. And what's going to do is going to pop up in the middle of us real quick and play, and then we'll jump back in it. So here's one of them right off the bat. You're going to recognize this face.
Great.
Hey Morris, it's been a long time. I have great memories from my childhood of you and being in band and listening to the drum corps. You were just a strong force in my high school days, and it's just good to hear about you again. Hope you're doing well.
Wow, that was crazy.
Lisa Carpenter from back in the day.
Yeah, man, I haven't seen. Yeah. Well, when I left, I went to Texas in '88.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I came back and forth. I'd go visit the house, and when we had the Black Watch 40th anniversary, well, I guess, God, 8 years ago now. We're coming up on our 50th anniversary in a couple years. I went back and saw some of the old players.
Nice.
And that was pretty cool. But yeah, Lisa, man, I haven't seen her. Most of those guys, they all took off and went to college. I took off and went to Texas. And so I haven't seen a lot of those guys in a long time.
And then I know you're going to recognize this one too, right off the bat.
Mo, Ron Cal here. You probably don't remember me, but you set me on a good path in the drum line of Black Watch, man. I appreciate you, and I'm happy you're doing well in your life, man.
Ron, yeah, that's cool. I sure haven't seen Ron in forever.
Wow.
Yeah, Ron's moved all over. He was all big in AOL when it first launched and stuff. He was doing that. He's still in the computer side of things. He's back in Louisiana now, but he's moved all over. We actually caught up with each other when I lived in Georgia. He was living in Augusta, Georgia, and I moved to a little town about 45 minutes south of Augusta.
Oh, okay.
And we got to hang out a couple years, and we both moved away to separate places. But yeah, they both want to kind of jump in there and do video messages, man. And say,
That's
hey.
really nice. I appreciate you doing that, because I always enjoy. It's like seeing Tommy, man. It's so cool that you two guys have been so successful in what y'all do. It's every teacher. I don't think teachers in general believe that most of the time they make any kind of major impact. In most cases, they just try to make sure that that they don't screw the kids up.
that we don't die.
Yeah, exactly. You want to give them something. You want to give them a philosophy to live by, a philosophy to kind of follow, and some examples, and then just kind of stay out of their way and keep them between the ditches. And so it always does me good, because I've heard from over the years. People that I hadn't seen in 15, 20 years will call up and go, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'll go like, "Who is this?" And you don't remember me, and we'll have a big conversation, and they'll say, I remember when one day in practice you said this, and this, and it was like 10 years later. It's like, wow, how do they remember that? And so it really instills in a teacher in particular how important every word that you say to a kid is. You can't not, you have to weigh every word you say, because some of the most minute things they'll walk away with, and it'll become something really important in their life down the road. And that's a really important, for a teacher, that's a really important thing to remember and know. So I always tried to operate that way to if I was going to say something, I wanted to make sure it was something positive that you could take with you, and not something that you might see as in a harmful way. And
it was. I know it was tough because you also, we went on a lot of trips together, right? There was always a lot of travel, and it's tough not to be the heavy, right, in that situation, because I'm gonna tell you what, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but there was a lot of hotel rooms that were trashed on the way.
Well, by the time you were in the drum line, I had been there since 74. Mm-hmm. So I had been there a long time, and early on I was not as gracious and benevolent as I was later. because we had to establish ourselves. You know, we
Yeah.
had to establish what we stood for, establish what the expectations were, and like this is how we're going to run this thing, and this is the way it's going to operate. And if you don't want to operate in that fashion, then you need to go find someplace else. And so once that was established, by the time after about 5 or 6 years in, I didn't have to do anything.
We were kind of like the second born kid, right? We didn't have to suffer the fate of the first one.
Yeah. You weren't the kid that got flogged every day. You were the second guy. And it really, by the time I left, it really literally, everything took care of itself because there was such a pride in what we did. I have a story about that that fascinates me to this day. I went to I was in Houston. It was about 10 years ago, I guess. So it was about 2010, before I came out here, and I went to a DCI show, and so the DCI show, and I look across the parking lot and I see a Calcasieu Parish bus, and I went, oh man, a Calcasieu Parish bus. Maybe Westlake came over. So I go trotting across the parking lot, and I walk up and I go, hey guys, how's it going? And they're all kind of this bunch of young kids. I'd been gone from Louisiana by this time for 15, 20 years. And I said, so where are you guys from? They said, oh, we're from Vinton. I said, oh, okay, cool. I said, I used to, years ago, I used to work at Westlake. I started the Black Watch. You started the Black Watch? Oh my God, come here, and all these kids come piling off the bus, and that is probably one of the things I'm most proud of, is the reputation that group had for being quality people. They were not just good musicians, but quality people. They treated other musicians with respect, and they treated themselves with respect. And that's probably all you can ask when you work with somebody as a teacher, is to just learn how to respect others and respect yourself and respect your craft and what you have the ability to do, and work hard at it.
Working with others. Here is my co-host just jumping in. Mike's over there in Mississippi. And,
hey,
meet Morris.
Morris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yes, sir.
And Mike's one of the editors over at Inked, and has a podcast in his own right, and is a wonderful creator and writer. So he's got a book fixing to come out. So
cool.
we're happy to get that done.
That's amazing. Fantastic.
It's just, you see, you hear when you say the name Black Watch, it really becomes legendary to people, and you can go back and reach back further and further and further. And again, some of the guys that kind of came in kind of as you were leaving and right afterwards were a couple guys that were, 5 or 6 years older than us, that kind of came in to try to kind of keep everything going. Because, Ecker had his hands full. He wasn't so much could weigh in on he was trying to keep everything else going. So we kind of were the last year kind of really running ourselves. There was no drum corps director. So it was just kind of, we were all junior seniors at that time. So we kind of had to try to figure it out. But,
the interesting thing I've discovered, and because I've been reasonably successful at a number of things that I know almost nothing about, and running a bus company is one of them. And I was a flute player when I started playing percussion in college. I was a flute player, and the way I ended up a drummer was that I had a buddy who was the head of the section, and all the flute players, all the cute flute players, were in the color guard during marching season. So I got stuck with all the music majors, and they weren't a lot of fun.
Yeah,
flute majors in college are just not a party group. So
I wouldn't say they're the go-getters. I wouldn't say
no, they're not. So this buddy of mine said, "Look, man, I got a bass drum open. Why don't you come play bass drum? You can read music. You'll fumble your way through it." That's how I ended up playing percussion. And I really, really enjoyed it. So when I went over to Westlake, I went down to the band hall and said, Mr. Harrell, I kind of know a little bit about drums, and, if you need somebody, let me know. And so he said, okay. And it didn't register for about 4 or 5 months. And then finally school starts the next year. And he goes like, did you tell me you knew something about drums? And I said, yeah. So that's how I ended up doing percussion, and kind of taught myself. And I think creativity, and you guys know this, creativity is something being creative is a problem solving process.
Yes.
It's not I mean, that's essentially what it is. I mean, you've got something you want to say or something you want to do, and you got to figure out how to say or do it. And so we have a process here we call the Einstein process. There's a quote by Einstein that says, if you wanted me to make a life saving decision, and I had an hour to do it, to solve the problem, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and 5 minutes creating a solution.
Yeah.
And so I try to work that way. So if you, and you guys know this, if you start with a good concept that you've really thought through and planned, then the rest of it is really easy. It's just mechanically executing it. If you start executing something before you have a plan, it turns into a train wreck.
We talk about that all the time because we talk about the process, the creative process, and part of it is, plan the work the plan.
Yep.
And we've developed a formula over the past 3 years that's how we work each campaign, and that process is just repeated over, and of course, adjusted as the campaign goes.
Sure.
But all those kind of roots of problem solving, I think you hit upon something, really came through in those high school years, because I was able to see the connection between art and music, and how that was both a creative role and how I could move back and forth between the two. And like you said, how they're both solving a problem, because it never failed. Something would happen. You'd be in the middle of something and a drumstick would snap, or, or you had to kind of think for a second, because wait a minute, we changed a little bit of that line from before, or we changed the formation, or we did something different from the last time. Or just or play on the fly like we had to when we all auditioned for state. My
key solution, my key creation on the saving my rear end routine was about 2 weeks before. It might not even been that long, about a week and a half before our biggest contest. We went to Gulfport, which is back then was our great big contest, our first big contest.
My neck of the woods.
That's where Mike's at.
Yeah, you're neck of the woods. My top bass drum quit, and I'm like, I just freaked completely out, because we had just started getting really decent with playing four bass drums, and she was the top drum. It's like this crucial drum. I'm going, oh man, and I'm all depressed and distraught, and I go sit out on the lake there in Lake Charles on a rock and ponder for a minute. And then I recall having gone a few years before to Disney World, and they have they had a little group called Future Core or something. It was like 2 or 3 bugles and a snare drum and a tenor player, and a guy playing 3 bass drums that were stacked, and there was a mount in between them, and he played all 3, and I went, well, there's my solution. So I go up in the attic there in the band hall and dig around. I find this old floor tom, repaint it, stick it on top of a drum. Poof! Now you play the top part and the next part, and it's just all problem solving. Yeah. We wrote some ensembles, some other ensembles, some big concert ensembles that were 30-minute pieces of music, and you had a picture. We designed a story, and then we wrote the story in music, essentially. Yeah. And it doesn't matter here. For example, we were sitting around, we were short a bunch of drivers for my school buses. So how do you sit down? What's the real problem? How do you address that problem? And how do you get kids back and forth to school? And if you think along standard lines, you're never going to come up with a solution. So you always kind of have to look out, and I've been successful in managing things, I think, sometime because I don't know I didn't know much about how to write percussion, so I just wrote music. And so when we'd go to a contest and people would go, wow, that's pretty cool writing. Who'd you play with? Nobody. I just wrote it because it sounded good, and it made a good picture. And so I try to do the same thing with my artwork. So when you look at this backdrop here, opposed to the Madonna painting, opposed to, and you can barely see it, but on the picture of my easel, my table, my palette table, you can see another painting back there. All 3 of them have totally different. Yeah, you see on the upper left over there, little men.
Yeah.
It's a painting about the Holocaust. It was called Einstadtgruppen Ghost, and it was about the Nazi death squad. And
Okay.
it's a shame you can't see the whole picture, but the whole picture, it's really kind of obscure and ghost-like and blends, and that's totally different than when you see the Madonna painting, because it's just a completely different style. A portion of that has to do with the fact I'm ADHD. So
Okay.
if I do the same thing over and over, it just kind of like drives me insane. So I always change every time I paint. I change something. I either change a
Gotcha.
different style. I paint it on a different background, and it keeps me fresh, my mind fresh about how I do things, because I let the what I want to do dictate what I do, as opposed to what I do dictating what I want to do.
There you go. I'm hunting real quick for the so I can put the there it is, background in progress. There, I'm searching real quick before I can move this picture to the front. So I've got another version of it. There we go. That'll work. Here's kind of this isn't the whole painting. This is kind of a piece of the painting that we zoomed in on. But there you go. I love the heavy brushwork in this. I had a college professor that was like that and had, strong, vibrant strokes in there, and well-defined color.
I've done another one of these that I like much better.
Okay.
It's this one I did because it was Halloween. I wanted to work on those brush strokes again because I was getting kind of tightening up. So that was what the impetus for the whole thing. And I went, well, it's almost Halloween. I'll just paint skulls. Yeah. And one of the ladies that works for me, my technology supervisor, said, "Oh, my daughter'd love one of those. Can you do one?" And I'll have to send you a picture of the other one sometime, because the other one I think is a better painting. But you know, like you guys do every time you do a new piece, or you do a new promotion, you learn something.
You do, and we always have we call the good and the bad and the ugly session. So it helps the creator learn how to do the campaign differently next time. It helps us learn how to do something differently the next time.
Sure.
And I've always found that to be.
I think that's a step a lot of people miss too. They look at it and they go, well, that was pretty good. Let's do another one. Instead of going, okay, that was pretty good. Like I can look at this painting and I can tell what I did wrong. And I can, when you look at this Madonna painting, I can find specific brush strokes that I don't like.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that and sit down, well, first off, if you do it too obsessively, you never finish a painting.
No.
So at some point in time, you just got to go, okay, I'm done.
I'm done. And here's what we were able to use it for. So this is going to be one of the backdrops in the Voodoo Lounge. So it all really kind of tied together really nicely.
Yeah.
And it was like we're doing now. It's going to be one that we're gonna sit in front of like we are and talk and stuff. And then here's the one he's talking about the Madonna painting. He will kind of walk us through that and see. I've got details in here as well from it. So the full painting's on the left, and then he's just got the different details across. So
this buddy of mine, several years ago, we were talking about painting and what we painted on, and years ago, I was doing a painting for someone who asked me to do a painting, and they had this really weird shaped fireplace. They wanted a painting over it, and so I kind of wanted to do this like puzzle looking panel to paint on, and so I built out a masonite, framed up masonite, and so I started painting on masonite because you could cut it any shape, size you wanted. It was easy to shape, cut up. It was cheap. Back then you could probably buy a sheet of masonite for $7 or $8,
right?
And you get a few one buys and frame it up, and you were good to go. And then so I did that. So this guy goes, man, you ought to go down to Lowe's and you can get a door. Like back then they were skinning them in 1/8-inch plywood.
Uh-huh.
And he said they always punch a hole in one side of them, throwing them around. And then you just pick that door up and you go up to the front and go, look, this door's got a hole in it, but I'll give you $5 for it. And so I started painting on these doors. So I have a whole bunch of paintings on doors. And that painting is a 2 foot by 24 inch by 80 inch door, and so it poses an interesting problem to me to paint tall like that. Because of the you that's what you got, and so I painted a bunch of totems where I've stacked items on it. But this is to run through the painting. It's called the Madonna Mamu, and for I'm sure Kevin knows where Mamu is, but Kevin is like the home of Cajun Mardi Gras, real Cajun Mardi Gras.
Okay.
And I grew up Catholic, and I grew up in South Louisiana. So every church you go into over on the right hand side has a Madonna statue, and it's in that general pose, just like that. Like one hand out and one hand by our side. And so I started thinking, as Mardi Gras being almost a religious holiday, then we tie in that, surely they've got a Madonna Mardi Gras somewhere. So I went and found me some Madonna pictures, and I started working on this thing, and it's got all the elements. It's got the ribbons up at the top, got the gold halo that you always see, got the little pointy hat there. I on the and for the viewers who don't know the Cajun Mardi Gras, essentially they get up before daylight on Mardi Gras on Fat Tuesday, and get together in their crew, and they have a captain, and they ride out into the countryside and stop at houses. Somebody gets up on the horse and sings, and the farmhouse, somebody comes out and throws a chicken out, and they have to chase down the chicken, and eventually the chicken gets carried back to Mamu, and they cook a big gumbo and drink a lot of beer. They've actually already drunk a lot of beer, but they continue to drink beer. So
it's another excuse to drink, is what
drink beer. And you're going to give up like anchovies for Lent or something, so you got to drink beer. So if you look, the Madonna has you can't make really good chicken gumbo without some sausage in it. So it's got some good sausage there. You can't have a dance without a fiddle player, so you got a fiddle player there. You got the chicken in the second panel. You can see the little scared chicken there hanging out around the bottom of the Madonna. She's standing on a globe that has the state of Louisiana, and that little star is where Mamu is in Louisiana. The votive candles all over the place, and so instead of votive candle holders, I used beer cans.
Gotcha.
And used some typically Southern beer cans, Jack's and Dixie and Falstaff. You can see the base of the globe is a king cake, and you can see the little king cake baby on there. And the story of the king cake baby is that when you cut the cake open, whoever gets the piece with the baby in it has to buy the king cake the next year. And then
my kids used to fight over that, man. I used to have stuff like 5 babies in the thing just so that each find
one. Now they don't even bake them in them because they're afraid somebody's going to choke to death on them and they'll sue you. But then I got a close up. I think I posted a close up of that picture so that you could see I thought it would be somewhat sacrilegious if I had the Madonna wearing beads. So I put the beads around her halo. And then you can't have a Cajun meal without a bottle of Tabasco sauce, and there's a little dead mosquito there. It was just kind of a whimsical piece. It wasn't. And she also is wearing what we in Louisiana call hackberry high tops. The white rubber boots that the shrimp guys wear out on the shrimp boats.
It's all very reminiscent of home. There's all kind of, like you said, all kind of elements. And that's why I like when I saw the post and you had all the different details from it, I thought, man, let's just put this together and we can walk through it. Cause it's the chicken thing. Cool. It is. I love it. It's
the chickens might be my favorite.
It is.
And you can't see the rice grains really closely, but in that second panel, the close up of the rice grains are I painted a lot of rice grains. And it wasn't meant to be. I have some interesting feelings about the photorealistic trend that is going on in art right now. I say it's like you either go to like this total abstraction on one end, or you go to photorealism on the other end.
Right.
I've got mixed emotions about the photorealism stuff. It's from my perspective, the skill that it takes is incredible. I mean, I don't have it, and I don't know that I could ever develop it if I practice that much.
Well,
but I had a coach in high school. The coach, the art guy that inspired me was my basketball coach.
Okay.
And he called me Buzzard. And he said, Buzzard, there are two things you need to know about art. One, if you want to make it look exactly like that, go get a camera and take a picture. And two, the beauty of painting is when you screw up, you can paint right over it. And so that has been kind of my guiding force for my 50-year journey in art and music and creativity is that you I would rather see something rawer and more expressive than see something that is that detail. Although I admire the hell out of people who can do it.
Well, and the same thing holds true in the comic world. There's all these different styles of how to get the point across, but to me, always in art is the same view of it's the artist interpretation of what they see, right? It's you getting out your vision, and like you said, and I still do a lot of photography work. Photography was my secondary in college, so yeah, if I want to go do some nice black and white photography, some Ansel Adams stuff, I'll go find a gorge somewhere in Washington, go shoot some stuff, or go find an old rundown gas station and get some really interesting tones in that. But that's if I wanted the realistic side of it. If I want to go draw, I want something that's expressive. Like people go talk about Van Gogh's paintings, like, well, he was going blind, right? That's kind of why why things were kind of starting to go that way.
Well, we all know he couldn't hear.
Exactly,
at least one ear.
Yeah. So it's
I got a joke about that Kenny Rogers, actually it wasn't Kenny Rogers, Ken Vassy, who was Kenny Rogers' guitar player, told me one time we were on our way to eat supper at what used to be the old Papanias in Lake Charles, and he said, I got a joke for you, an art joke, because I said I was majoring in art. And I said, what's that? He said, you know what the prostitute, what Van Gogh told the prostitute after she told him he cut his ear off and she told him that she didn't love him? And I said, no, what's that? He went, huh? So it's one of the about three jokes I know the punchline to. But
that's a good art. Well, we had in McNeese we have what we jokingly refer to as the art altar, and it was a bunch of 35 millimeter slides that you had to burn into your brain who inspired who and why, what movement it came from, what they were trying to do. I've got more art history in my head than I ever care to remember. No offense, art history teachers, but they were wonderful, and I still keep up with some of them today. And it was just a lot, man. It was a lot. You had to it was kind of like the Matrix, or more like Johnny Mnemonic, the kind of predecessor to the Matrix. I had to dump part of my childhood to try to remember.
To fill it up with Monet versus Monet versus
Oh man,
which one had an O, which one had an A? I'm so confused.
And I probably garbled which one was going blind. I mean, they're all up there. It's just trying to pick through.
It's one of the. I think it was Monet and his water lilies. That's why they were all screwed up.
It's Monet, and Van Gogh was losing.
Van Gogh was just wacky and cut an ear off. Yeah.
So they all had something going, but it's
they all probably had lead poisoning from lead white oil paint. That's probably why they were all going completely wacky.
We had a college professor that was for ceramics that was they were trying to figure out if the glaze is what started having him have some sight. His eyes would jump. I don't know how in the world he could focus because his eyes would shoot back and forth right and left quickly. And and they thought it might have been something to do with the glaze. I don't know if that was ever proven or not proven, but I know that was kind of
there was. I mean, original oil paint colors were. Man, they used all kinds of stuff for them. And it was not particularly healthy, which I think may explain a lot of why I'm a little weird, because everything that was white that they painted when I was a kid was with lead white paint. So
exactly.
I must have chewed on a windowsill or something. And
what was that about Johnny Boy? Did you eat paint chips as a child?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it.
Well, hell,
But
we
I'm,
used to wash our hands in gasoline. I mean, when
oh
I've
yeah,
been building cars since
constantly.
I was 16, and I was just like,
No.
okay, yeah, here's some gas. I got this stuff on my hands.
Xylene, all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff that just fry your head completely off. I'm surprised I don't have a thumb in the middle of my forehead.
Oh,
Um,
it's well from that part of the country with all the chemical plants around.
yeah, it's surprising.
I can smell the chlorine in the air when I go home
Yeah,
to visit
yeah,
Dad and the boys.
it's
As soon
pretty
as I get off the
amazing, isn't
plane, I'm like, oh, whoa!
it? Yeah, yeah.
It's like I walked into somebody's pool house.
And it's
And
way cleaner now than it was a long time ago.
yeah, oh, I can remember middle school to high school that they'd play these giant sirens when
Yeah.
there was some sort of alarm, and but that was going on the whole time we were like growing up. So I'm like, okay, yeah, there's a chlorine leak. There was one last week and you didn't have an alarm system.
Yeah.
So what did it matter? Who knows? You know.
We were talking about photorealism versus looseness, and one of my another person who I could never paint like, but who kind of inspired me to paint on masonite was Frank Frazetta, because I had a book, man, I read his book, and he talked about, he only paint, which also justified how I would wait till the very last minute to do anything, because he said he would, like, sometimes he would wait till like the day before it was due before he'd start painting on it, which makes my head hurt just looking at his stuff and thinking that he'd do that. But he painted on untreated masonite, which is the dark brown masonite had a lot of oil in it, but the untreated was more like almost compressed cardboard. And and you can see in some of his paintings, you can see the background. You can see some of the raw masonite on it.
Yeah.
And he's to me is one of those examples of really, when you look at it closely, just beautifully loose brushwork, but incredibly expressive figure.
And there's a lot of homage covers that take his, like Death Dealer is one of his covers that people kind of replicate a lot. And then Sarah Frazetta, his daughter, still carries on this called the Frazetta Girls, and she runs a museum and stuff. And so she's still real active in keeping all that going.
How cool! Because he was a beast. And the other guy that I can't, his name just went away from me, that painted much in the same style. If you said it, I'd know it. But did comic book covers, the whole same deal. Geez, I can't believe I can't remember.
I'll think about it.
It'll strike you, because it was the same kind of style, the same kind of subject matter, but it just wasn't Frank Frazetta. It was just there was a little bit missing. But I liked him. I liked Salvador Dali. I always also wanted to be a surrealist, and what I discovered, and I think it's important for people to understand this about themselves. And one of the reasons I could never do photorealism is if I can't finish a painting in just about 2 weeks, it's dead. I mean, it'll just fade away, and then something else will come along and go, ooh, shiny, and it's gone. And I learned that pretty early on. So, which is what drives a lot of my style of painting, because it's loose, and I can work looser and faster. And I think that makes a lot of difference to me when I paint. So I figured that out when I was in an undergraduate, about halfway through my degree. It's like, man, because I started painting a realistic painting. It was in an acrylics class, which I didn't like, but I had to paint something, and it's like it had glass in it, and so the middle of it is like really good. And then it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. Yeah. And by the time you get to the end, it's like, oh, he was ready to finish that, because it was done. It was done.
I feel like that when in cars sometimes. It's like you're gung ho in the beginning, because I mean the Nova took from bumper to bumper took 5 years. Yeah. So it's kind of like, and I haven't literally sat in the car in 4. So it's like, wow, you almost want to lose interest in it, but now it's coming back up, because I know it's fixed to be delivered. So it's the same kind of thing. Now, the problem-solving aspect is, again, that roots of that problem-solving that I started picking up in high school, and again, from talking with you and stuff, that's carried me through my entire career, because I went from the art side of things into industry, and I ended up in doing inspection work, which is visual. So I'm still carrying my visual skills into that world.
Sure.
And then I've moved on further into engineering. So, it's taken that problem solving aspect from the art creative side and in both music and in art, and then now that transposes into working at the Manhattan Project. So, and those of you who know the Manhattan Project that is where the stuff was made for the bombs for Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So we're cleaning up that mess, but as when I'm a quality engineer, so I have to use those problem solving skills. And okay, this is the system. We have a system. We have to test it. We have to figure out when we test it, what's wrong with it, how to put it back online. And we just go through the systemization process, which again, that, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. That goes hand in hand with the art process.
I don't think it's mysterious. Yeah, I don't think it's mysterious that Leonardo da Vinci was interested in all that stuff. I mean, that he could invent machines and then paint these exquisite paintings. On the other hand, I don't think that's I don't think that's aside from the fact he probably had an IQ about 200, but outside of that, I don't think it's unusual that you have that a truly creative person can embrace the two ends of what seem to be a really diverse spectrum, when in reality the process is what links them all together. So it doesn't really matter what you do if you have a process, and then you go out and get, if you have any kind of smarts at all, you'll go out and get the information you need to plug into your process to answer the question. And I've done that in any number of times. I've sat with engineers before, and like a whole room full of them, we're trying to solve a problem on why the foundation of a building's breaking up. And I go, did you guys notice that when they had these plugs that they had bored in the foundation? Did you guys notice that when it rained, there was water in the holes, but when it didn't rain, there wasn't water in the holes? Do you think perhaps? I'm just guessing here. It had something to do with the drainage system, and I swear they all just kind of went, Well, and inevitably, what they discovered was there were leaks in the downspouts of the drain that were draining up under the building, and it was like, you taking engineering? No, it's not engineering, man. It's common sense. You just gotta think about it for like 3 seconds.
I have those discussions all the time with people, and it's interesting that, again, there's a process in there that you would think that would be in engineering 101 that's just not given to them, or are they so far over here with the problem they miss the little thing in front of them, and it's so funny because we'll get to going on something and I'll kind of bring up something like that, it's kind of just a general kind of, by the way, guys, did you happen to, if you kind of step back for a second and you look over here, what does this kind of appear? And they go, oh, yeah, didn't even think about that before, and these guys are probably could probably design new wings for the space shuttle, but they're going to stand in the rain. They're just not going to.
It's a forest for the trees thing, I think. They
took the words out of my mouth.
They analyze stuff and they can't look at it with a different eye, which is I think what has made me reasonably successful in the things that I've done is that almost everything I've stepped into, with the exception of teaching art, that was not what I started out training for.
Yeah.
But in the process of doing art and music, and you learn that process, and so you look at it in a completely different angle than an engineer or a musician might, because it's been drilled into their head. We had a T-shirt. You may have tripped over one of those. It was just a couple of years before you got there, that said "Rucka Rucka Rucka" on the front of it, because our idea was that most of these guys, drum lines, had these warm ups that, man, and it was just Rucka Rucka. There was no music to it. It was like, I want to see how many 14,750 paradiddles, flamma diddle I can stick into one measure of music, and it had nothing to do with the music. It had no relationship to anything other than showing off how fast I could play a drum. And so we, thematically, because I didn't know that much about playing a drum that well, it was like, well, we got to do something well. Let's be very musical. So we worked very hard on being musical, and that's what got us where we were. It wasn't raw talent, because we didn't have a lot of years we just had hardworking musicians that made music as opposed to drummers that just hung out with musicians.
Well, you
That
know,
was
we honestly, when I was kind of faced with what else to do in high school, because I wasn't one that was formally, I didn't come up through music. I wasn't like fighting for chairs and stuff in middle school and then ended up in high school. I started my musical career in the 9th grade. So I was like, what else can I do? I was like, you know what? Drumming's pretty cool. And, you know, drumsticks in your pocket's even kind of cooler walking around. So
you're really cool if you had drumsticks in your pocket. Yeah.
I think I'm going that route because that's, you know, a great way to pick up girls is have drumsticks in your back pocket. So
chicks love the drumsticks.
Like, chicks love music. Chicks love musicians. So let's go for it. So, yeah.
It's interesting, you know, the way we built our section, because we got no one from the junior high, but the way we built our section was I'd make these flyers and pass them out. And I'd go, you know, if you're willing to work a ridiculous number of hours a week, we can make you famous. Just show up. And so we would get 40 or 50 people, and then we'd kind of sort them out, and then we'd work for a couple of weeks, and we'd get down to, you know, 30, 35, and then we'd work a few more weeks, and we'd end up with 24 people that were willing to take a beating every day. And those, I tell you, the other thing that was important to me about that was that there were kids whose, as Andy Warhol would say, everybody's going to be famous for 15 minutes. Yeah. That was their 15 minutes. I mean, they wore that jacket and they could wear it anywhere in the state of Louisiana and somebody'd know who they were. And they were famous. I mean, just because they belonged to that section.
Now, we used to,
that was a big deal.
I'm going to tell off myself a little bit. We used to use that jacket as kind of bragging rights. So we would, we'd end up on the wrong side of town. Like we'd end up in Sulphur and we'd find a McDonald's where we knew, like, you know, 20 of them
just
were hanging
out in there.
We just walk through and, well, you'd see everybody, you know, step up and stuff. And we just walk through and walk out the other side. We just did enough that just to kind of get attention. But
it really was a big deal. And it was, and it was mostly a big deal, Kevin, because of the people. Yeah. Because of the, I can remember one year they asked me to judge honor band. So we go out, I go in there and I'll just like listen to like 10 hours honor band tryouts. Yeah. And I had another guy in there with me. We get to the end. They're gonna select. I think they selected 16 drummers, and 10 of them were from Westlake. Yeah. And so all the band directors were like, well, I'd go into the practice room, and our drummers would be over with the drummers they're getting ready to compete against, teaching them how to play the stuff that they should have known when they showed up. So they well, you can't do that next year because, you know, that's why all of your guys got it. Okay. So I judged junior high drummers. Now, oh God, that's like a root canal with ice water in it, man. That's just heinous. So they get another guy to come in. A guy from McNeese comes in. 16 drummers again. That year, 12 of the 16 were from Westlake.
Yeah. See, I drove my dad.
I got nothing to do with that.
That was the other thing. I had drumstick. I was always tapping on something, and Dad, that's when I was like, you know what? He said, that's when he said, you know, drumming's what you need to be doing. So that's what I went my 9th grade year. So I finally got the tips to put on the drumsticks.
There you go. Vito tips, man.
Yeah. So I couldn't make any more noise in the house. But we did some stuff, man. We it's probably still on the quads. I used to play a lot of quads, right? So I'd play quads during the holidays and stuff, and I'd play regular bass during the marching season, and then timpani during orchestra season. So we got the bright idea one day to take the quads and run Christmas lights through them and spray them with spray snow. So when you were playing, snow was bouncing off of. And, oh man, you could never get that stuff off.
It didn't come off very well.
It didn't come off. So that was a bright idea going wrong. And there's actually a picture in, I don't remember which yearbook, if it's because all my stuff got ruined in a hurricane. So I don't remember if it's a junior or senior year. No, it had to have been junior because I stopped my junior year. Junior or sophomore year, that we got in a car wreck going over to one of the performances. And it was myself and Bobby Drew. And my car got smashed. My whole front of my car was smashed in. And they have us in the parking lot with our arms crossed with drumsticks with the front of my car smashed, and somehow made the yearbook picture. just the antics and some of the camaraderie, that we used to have really kind of falls. And again, I make a lot of comparisons between that and the comic business, because that camaraderie of fellowship, of all having a common interest.
Sure.
Still
It's
holds
an
true
energy.
to this.
It's an energy that you generate. It's the same reason I love graduate school, because I was in graduate school working on my master's in studio. I had a studio up and everybody would go in, they close their doors to their studios. They didn't want, and I'd open mine open, crank the music up, and like whoever wanted to come in, because you generate this energy, these that you don't get if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that don't have the same common interest. They don't. You get it really drives. Johnny Johnson really was such a creative force when he and I worked together. We wrote some incredible music together because he was so intense and energetic. And when we get together to write stuff, man, it was really good. And neither one of us were drummers. He was a sax player and I was a flute player. So
and then a couple other people that come to mind. Christopher Parker wanted to jump in and say, "Hey, he wasn't able to make it tonight." And he's real big up in Amazon. He comes up this way to Washington because it's one of the major distribution centers is at. He works working in that. I think I don't know which department he's in now, or if he just moved. But the last time I talked to him, that's what he was doing.
He needs to drag his sorry butt down here. I haven't seen him since I think he quit the drum line his senior year. I bet you I haven't seen him since then. Yeah. And he and Jamie Guidry and all those guys, they were some studs, man. They were some real studs. That was probably the strongest talented line that from that year, that group, those years right in there were probably the most talented line I had. And they were just ridiculously good. And it was a lot of fun.
We all played well together, and I appreciate being in those kind of fun years because, and I think part of it too was we were all also would push each other. I know Jamie and I had that love-hate relationship. We'd push each other back and forth on our music. And Chris and I grew up together since elementary school, so we know each other for years. And we'd spend the night at houses and stuff. So Chris and I just knew each other. But Jamie and I didn't know each other, and we would push each other musically. And there's been more than one time we probably almost got into a scrap or two.
Yeah, he was competitive. Jamie was very intense and competitive.
And he didn't like the fact that I'd go toe to toe with him because he would say something, I'd say something back, and he wouldn't back down. I wouldn't back down, and that got kind of intense. And one time we were we both went to state, and it could happen to anybody, right? And he's locked up during his tryout for the solo. Yeah. So I don't even remember what God is. It's now that you say it all kind of floods back. I don't remember what started the argument, but he smarted off something. He kind of got all that kind of smirk on his face and said, "Well, at least I didn't blow my solo at state." Oh man, you would have thought I called his mama a name. He just went threw drumsticks and was pitching a fit. But we pushed each other that way. It just made us better musicians.
Yeah, it wasn't personal either, and that was. It was intense and it wasn't personal, and we worked really hard at it, and we're proud of it. And I think the respect that those guys got when we'd go over to Barb. We went over to Barb and practiced with them. We'd go over to LaGrange and practice with those guys, and there was such a respect for those guys. The guys that used to come, Timmy Dugas and Joe Ingles would come.
That's the two I couldn't think of the name. That's the two I was talking about that came over and trained us.
Yeah. Timmy was a beast. Timmy was a national snare champion, and he was a beast. But they came over for free and worked with you guys because it was fun. Because
were they both Blue Devils or was it just?
Phantom.
Phantom.
I think both of them marched Phantom, and Joe marched Phantom. Timmy marched, I think, Phantom, and then he marched Suncoast. And
for you guys that don't know out there, that's like the best of the best of the best. Like that's a small sliver of getting in that.
And they came and worked with you guys because they respected y'all. And we just enjoyed what we were doing. That was and it's like what you guys do now. It's if you got a job you don't like, go get another job. Don't don't.
Exactly.
It's not worth wasting your life doing stuff you don't like doing.
Nope. We
And
love what we do. We have a lot of time. We bring creators on and we talk through stuff with them and we get them out there and we get them noticed and we all learn from it and we all grow from it. And that's why I said the wall behind me keeps growing. We did 55 campaigns. So
it shows in what you do. I mean, if you're an honest guy, you work hard and you're sincere and you're respectful of your craft and your art, then people are respectful of you. And I think sometimes people kind of lose when they start doing art. They start trying to do something that's just not. They create a false image, and then they try to do art in that image, and that image isn't them, and
Right.
So it's just cheesy. It's just bad. Cheesy, weird crap that everybody looks at and goes, ooh, and then somebody pays a bunch of money for it and they become famous. And I because I've known artists that would do just crazy crap just for the sake of doing crazy crap.
Yeah, shock value. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think it's respectful of the art. I don't think, I get being creative. I get looking at something and going, I can see Picasso going, native, ooh, African mask, but I can't see him standing there in front of, going, hey, I'm going to really piss people off if I draw an African mask. So that's what I'm going to do today. I can't see him doing that, So and consequently he painted for, 80 years. So I think you if you're respectful to what you do and you value what you do, the reason I started back painting to hit that point before we go. Now there was a point in my life where I thought, man, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work till I'm about 60 or 65. I'm going to retire. I'm going to build me a little studio and I'm going to hang out and, I'll get a cat and a sweater with a big collar that you can sit around, all that crap. And it occurred to me, I'll probably die right here at this desk. So finally I said, I spent a lot of my life trying to be creative, and I think that I'm not a great artist. I'm an average artist, but I enjoy doing it. So that's what I want to start doing again. And so I set my studio up and dragged some stuff in there and got on Amazon and got some new paints and brushes and got with it. And it made me feel good, because for years you felt like, I'm just, you're not really cheating your creativity, because I use it everywhere. I mean, I'm creative. I used to write poetry. I have to write papers, presentations. I speak, I'm public speaking, and you've got to be creative to do all that. And it takes to write music. It takes a huge amount of energy to do that. So you're really being creative. And I was good with that, but really what I really wanted to do and what I always really loved was being artistically creative. So I've gotten back with that, and it feels better, because it feels like I didn't cheat myself out of an experience that I should have had. And so that's why I think it's so cool that you guys do what you do, because you obviously are not going to, I hope you do, but you may not become a millionaire doing it, but you're going to be comfortable and you do good work and you feel good about what you do. And that's what it's all about when you get down to the end of it.
It is. And that's what I told somebody the other day. And I remember the time from talking to you and kind of reconnected again was right before you got back into painting again. Yep. So I was able to watch that, and you could see how much things were going and how much the energy was growing, how much you loved doing it again, which was awesome to see. Yep. But
I got to tell you, Tommy blows me away that he's nominated for a Grammy.
Isn't that
awesome? Just blows me away. That's incredible. That was really cool to see him.
And he was sad he had to go because his internet wasn't holding up. So that's what kept zipping in and out. But other people that wanted to say hi were LaDonna Thompson wanted to say hi.
Oh yeah, love. In the entire 4 years, I think I heard LaDonna say 2 sentences.
Yeah.
And so that's why we called her La. Mm-hmm. We didn't even use her whole name. She was great though. I mean, that was a great group. That group around that group, they were just phenomenal.
And Matt Culpepper wanted to say hi.
Matt, loved old Matt. Yeah. So, well, thank you for touching base with those guys, man, because I love all those guys. I still got I got a whole Black Watch wall at home of stuff.
Nice.
It's I've got everything we've ever done, every T-shirt we ever printed, every piece of music I ever wrote.
Well, you remember there's a couple of those T-shirts you have that I drew. So you've got some of my artwork that I still don't have anymore that got wiped out. So
that is correct.
The coming at you live where the bass drum rips apart.
Yeah,
You see the glowing eyes and the the reaching out. That's some of my old.
That's
old
right.
high
I
school
forgot
stuff.
about that. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
We had a lot of fun with that. But no, it's we just love what we do, and you're right. And it's something that, and I give my wife credit for talking me back into doing it, because we got to talking about it, and like you said, what I do for a living is creative, but it's in a different vein. So it wasn't the artistic creative that I missed and did for so many years. So that's what she said, which is, why don't you just go ahead and just, everybody's doing a 5 to 9 now. Just why don't you just go ahead and start it up and do that?
Yeah.
And it's just grown and grown and grown. We've had great people like Mike come into it, and there's 12 people on the team, and all of us ping off each other, and that energy and that vibe, and the business takes care of itself during the day. There's people that are driving the business during the day, and then I come in the afternoon, I see where we're at, and I work nights and weekends, as a creative director, keeping everything going, and it's been a blast.
Where in Mississippi are you, Mike?
I'm in Biloxi.
Beautiful Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Been through many a time I have been through there. The first time I saw clear water in the Gulf of Mexico was in Biloxi. I was used to, South Louisiana is kind of a nice chocolate color when you get out on the beach. But I thought that was the most amazing thing I ever saw.
You have to go to Ship Island now and look on the other side. I'm sad to say it's not as clear as it used to be back in the 90s.
This was further back than that. I was a sophomore in high school and went to a Key Club convention in Biloxi, Gulfport, Mississippi. And I walked out on the beach and looked down and could see my feet, and I went, "What magic is this?"
Exactly.
I was fascinated.
That was before they filled in the beach. The beach used to be like 10 feet in with like steps, and they filled all that in now. It's all
like a seawall or something there.
Yeah, especially going through Bay St. Louis. I've been here most of my life.
It's pretty cool. I like the South.
The Holly Beach was something that was kind of hit the Sodom and Gomorrah days with one of the hurricanes, because anything that was at Holly Beach was just eradicated in a moment. And I went back down there to kind of check on things and see what, and the only way you could tell where the streets were, where they had to actually do land surveys to figure out where everything was, because I don't know if you remember, TNT was Touche and Touche, which was the only place that you could go to get something to drink, a little plastic, shell or something as a souvenir, and ice cream and stuff. We'd always go there as kids. The only thing left of the only thing standing in Holly Beach was the set of steps that were to Touche and Touche.
That, by the way, was the second time, because the first time that happened, I was but a wee 5 years old.
Yep.
And Hurricane Audrey went through like at the exact same place.
Yep.
And went almost the identical route into Louisiana. And we stayed in our house for the first half and then went to the school for the second half. But it was, I can remember, I went down to Holly Beach when I was 3 and 4 years old. So
when that happened,
you guys probably don't remember that, but
I do. I don't remember it, but I was told about it from my dad. My dad went down and was with the search parties and helped, do things down there.
Bodies floating around all over the place.
Yeah. And he told me about the, funny you should bring up the Virgin Mary and the Catholic Church and stuff. Of course, the Catholic Church has all the different statues around it. And it was one of the churches they went to. That was the only thing left.
I remember seeing pictures of that when I was a kid.
With the statues all the way around the church.
Yeah. So I remember seeing those when I was a kid. That was and we go there years and years later, like 6, 8, 10 years later, and you can see refrigerators and boats and all kinds of stuff out in the marsh. It was pretty bad.
Hurricane Ike took my house out. It was I had 55 inches of water in my house for 3 days, and it wiped out everything I ever had.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it was done.
Not a lot done. Yeah, left.
No. And I was out there on the way towards. I was not too far from the ship channel, which is the problem, because people don't realize that it was only like a stage 3 hurricane. So people go, "Oh, it was only a stage 3. It wasn't bad." But the
storm surge.
The storm surge was a stage 5.
Yeah, that's what gets everybody. It's not that the wind will blow some crap around. The last one 175 miles an hour, but typically, when it's 130, 120, it'll blow stuff around. But all the real damage comes from all the water it blows in.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not. It is, as you said, murky Louisiana water. It's not pool water.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. Yeah, yeah.
People picture water and they think of aquarium. No.
Chocolate milk. Chocolate milk.
That flood
It was
got
bad.
trapped
I had
in 2015, I think it was, that big flood that hit Louisiana. I was living in Walker, right there on the town's edge, and it was like one of the dams broke, and because of the way the landscape was, the basin between all the surrounding area was just like a bowl, so it came like to Walker, and then it went to Denham, and then it went over here to Granada, and then it went over there to over. Man, it went everywhere. Like I went into work one morning. And he was like, "You got to check the news. It's going to be pretty bad." I was like, "No, it's going to be okay." I woke up at 8. I was like, "Yeah." So woke up at noon. There's 4 feet in the front yard. Yeah. I mean, there were horses on trailers being towed around because the water was affecting ranches. People stories of gators in people's front yards.
Typically, when you build cities below sea level, stuff like that happens at some point in time.
And I went to New Orleans after that, and New Orleans was just obliterated. There was cars stacked underneath the interstate, all with mud, grass, and seaweed stuck in the grills
coming out of it.
Yeah, it was just it was bad. But that whole time period, it literally. I had a ranch at the time, and I moved the horses out the day before and had them stashed on higher ground, and then left just minutes before the flood came in because my kids were playing in the back of and there was a pond in the back of the ranch, and they came running up. They go, Dad, you got to come check this out. And so I go back, and there's water pouring into the pond.
Not a good sign.
And I went, uh-oh. And I moved the brush out of the way, and I was at the back of the property, and I looked, and I could not see land between myself and the Gulf of Mexico. Wow. And we were 30 miles inland, so it literally white-capped. If you remember Fisherman's Headquarters in Sulphur and Cameron, it actually, the water stopped at Fisherman's. So that's literally 30 miles inland. So we're 30 miles from Texas line, 30 miles from the Gulf. And 4 foot of water. There was a water line in the house. And people go, oh, my God, it's 55 inches of water. And they go, well, that's a lot. I'm like, I'm glad it was 55. They're like, why is that? I said, well, if you're 4 foot or below, insurance only pays, they'll cut half the sheetrock.
Up to 4 feet, yeah.
And so I would keep up there. 55 was good for me. You know,
if it's ruined, it's ruined. It doesn't really matter how high.
No, it does. Once it gets a little bit, that's a lot. But no, it's been a blast catching up with you, man. And it's good. And like I said, it was nice to hear from all the different people that we went to school with and stuff pitching in.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I was able to catch up with Chris. I couldn't find Jamie, but like I said, it was always fun pushing each other in that sense. And like you said, it was always respect. You know, we always respected each other, had good fun with it, had good memories from it. There was a quick story. Me and Bobby almost got caught climbing out of we were several floors up at LSU when we were playing for All-Stars, and we were sneaking out of the window when they kind of rattled the door to make sure everybody was in for the night. So we about killed ourselves falling back through the window to not get caught. But yeah, tons of great memories from that growing up, and definitely we appreciate all the guidance and all the trips and all the just the genuineness that you gave us all.
I appreciate that, and it makes me feel good to know that I contributed something. And you sometimes it doesn't take much, and to really. For somebody to cling to for the rest of their life and to think about and to be, and I've heard a number of drummers say the same thing, well, if you remember when you told us, and I'm going I hope I remember that. But it's like something, and I use this example all the time about how important little things are. So when I was a little kid, I'd go to my grandmother's house, and this is back in the days when you actually shine shoes, if you remember that. And so watching Andy Griffith, and so Opie and Andy Griffith and Barney is polishing his shoes, and so he's sitting in the sheriff's office polishing his shoes. He said, an old German general once told me you need to polish the heels of your shoes really good because that's the last thing people see when you walk off. And I swear to God, for the last 65 years, every time I polish a pair of shoes, I think of that. It's like and it's really interesting, and I wish people sometime would be more cognizant of how much influence they have on people with just little thing, not big thing. I mean, you can get up in front and make some kind of big hellacious speech and pontificate on how wonderful you are and all that stuff. But it's always, I mean, inevitably when we'll be talking, they don't talk about some rant I had before for a band contest or something. They'll always talk about some little time when they needed something or we were doing something. And you said, you remember you told me, and it was always something that to an outsider it would have seemed insignificant. So I really pay attention to and I think it's taught me over the years to really pay attention to what comes out of your mouth when you say stuff.
It's a fact.
And I have a pretty nasty temper, so I need a lot of that thinking. But it's served me well. That whole concept has served me really well.
The only temper that I ever saw in the 3 years that we spent together, or the 2 years that we spent together, was when you tossed Anderson's kids out of when he was messing with all the different drums, and you tossed Anderson's kid out of the band room that day. And I thought it made such an impact because he was a smart guy.
I remember that. Yeah.
He was banging and beating on all the drums and running around. He was I think in middle school at the time.
Yeah.
And you said, you asked him nicely before. You said, hey, can you not mess with that? Can we, we're set up, and we're fixed to start practice. Can you, you can stay and watch, but can you not go? And he said, well, my daddy runs this school. And you said, oh yeah. And you grabbed him by the loop of the back of his belt and the back of his shirt. And
we strolled right out.
You Superman him right out of the room.
there were things that I just didn't tolerate, and messing with our stuff was not one of those things I tolerated.
And back in the day, guys, Morris worked out a lot. So Morris was like my dad. They were both wide in the shoulders and built, and you weren't gonna win that battle. You could talk around it, and so we respected that. And
I respected you guys, and I loved y'all a lot, and it just is always. It was probably the best. It's an interesting thing, and I'm sure you guys will. Well, Kevin, Mike, you look considerably younger than Kevin, so Kevin will probably get.
Meanwhile, while I was in diapers, all of this was going on.
Kevin will probably get to this point before you do, but at some point in time, you value all those experiences that you learn from, and you reflect upon them in a completely different way. Yeah. And it makes it really enriches your life, and you'll now I make probably 6 or 8 times what I made when I was teaching school, if not 10 or 20 times. And I didn't have, as my dad used to say, a pot to piss in when I was teaching school. But if you ask me what probably the best 10 or 15 years of my life were, that was it. I mean, I was doing percussion, I was writing poetry, and I was painting all at the same time, and teaching English and coaching basketball and all of that stuff. And it was an incredibly rich period in my life, and it wasn't because I had a bunch of money. It was because of the experiences and the people that were in my life and the experiences that were offered. So that's why I'm glad that you guys are, especially you, baby Mike, that y'all are enjoying, your life now and enjoying that experience, because I'll guarantee you when you get up the road a bit, it will be highly valued by you. And it's great. It's great to talk to Kevin and see Tommy, man. That was way out of left field there. And Lisa and those guys, it's just wonderful to be associated with you guys. And I really appreciate the opportunity you've given me to come talk about my art and talk about myself. It's very, I'm very honored to be able to do that. So I appreciate it.
We were glad to have you. When I was thinking about what to do for the 1 year anniversary, and all the artists that we bring on throughout the season, they always talk about, again, their inspirations and what brought them to be. And I was like, you know what? Let's reflect for a second on, I want to reflect a second on the inspirations that I had growing up. Yeah. So when I got to thinking about those pivotal times and about art and music and creation, and I was like, you know what? I think the perfect person to have on the show would be Mo. That would
well, be. I'm really honored for that because, we try. It's not often we get to do that. My initial inspiration back when I was going to bring it so I could hold it up and show you, but I had a basketball coach, and he had majored in commercial design in college, but he coached baskall. He's an incredible basketball coach. But I was always doodling and drawing on something, and he said, Buzzard. He said, because I had no hair. They'd make us cut all our hair off, play basketball. So he said I looked like a buzzard in mating season. So he called me Buzzard. And he came in one day. He goes, hey, he said, let me show you something about how to be creative. And there was a coffee pot in the cafeteria, and there was a napkin under the spout, and it had dripped. Some coffee on there, so it had this kind of round stain. And so he picked up and he drew a trunk, and he was an incredible draftsman. He tried to draw trunk and limbs, and he put South American coffee tree across the top of it. And he said that's how you look for stuff like that. That's what creativity is. And I have that napkin framed and hanging in my wall at my house. I found it. He did three drawings for me, and I have all three of them framed on my wall. It was just such awesome. An inspiration. Yeah,
that coffee cup stain is a couple of quick references. One of them is I got a chance to talk with David Carson, who is the one that did the Lucent Technologies logo. And for a lot of times, I listened to him in Austin, and I got a chance to talk with him downstairs in the lobby. And he said he told a story of he had someone in the crowd say that they thought the Lucent Technologies logo, that kind of Zen symbol, that red Zen symbol, was a coffee cup stain. And he kind of jokingly said, well, I got paid $2 million for that coffee cup stain. So,
yeah.
And I was like, yep, that's the way you do that. And he also did a lot with the MTV logo and whatnot. So he had a wonderful career. But that perspective on, like you said, picking out things. So I used that when the very first advertising job I ever got when I was still at McNeese was I took a coffee cup and did the stain on the side of my resume, and then I tore different pieces and I taped them together, but not quite right. And I would literally one line and scratch through things and rewrite parts of the resume. And that's what they remembered was it wasn't the perfect stark white resume with all the perfect spacing. It was really just the resume itself was creatively done. And I've always tried to cling to that for all these different campaigns. We sit in and talk about things. It's, let's give it something that has a different edge than every other white piece of paper that's shoved up there to look at. Let's try to give it something.
That's a great. I'm going to tell you one more story because I know you guys got to go, but I'm going to tell you a story about why I started painting. So I didn't have art in high school because we didn't have art class. So my coach was a guy, and I kind of alluded to this comment earlier. So I had a cousin who stayed in jail most of his life because he wrote a lot of hot checks. And for some reason or another, while he was in jail, he took up painting. And I didn't know him personally. My mom knew him because it was my mom's relative. And so for whatever reason, one day in the library, they came and laid out probably 50 of his paintings. And they were kind of trees, and he got much better as his career in prison went, but it was flowers and all that stuff. And I had never seen in real life an oil painting that somebody had actually done other than, a couch painting hanging in a motel someplace.
Right.
So I'm just struck, and you could still smell the paint and the turpentine.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I just walk up and down there all day long. And Coach came in, he goes, that's when he told me, he said, Buzzard, the beauty of painting is if you screw up, you just paint right over it. Yep. And I went, that is an excellent philosophy to live by. And my grandfather he brought me that weekend, and we went to an art store in Lake Charles and bought a box of one of the box oil paints, of permanent pigment oil paints. And I've got the first painting I did with those paints sitting in my studio. So it again, it's the little things that somebody says to you that rolls around in your head, and you go, woo, makes perfectly good sense. So.
I still remember the things that you had said and the things that I had a college professor, Bill Isles, and this is much kind of like an homage to Bill, because Bill had this same kind of beard and would smoke a pipe. Right, he's walking around this back.
Oh.
He's still smoking school, so he's walking around the McNeese art department smoking that pipe. And I actually worked for the McNeese art department for a couple of years producing signs, because that's how we funded different things for the school. We're painting signs for all kind of businesses all over. So I learned a lot about sign painting doing that. So I remember one time he walked by and I had learned how to reverse paint. So I would lay down. It was we did a McNeese sign. So I did the yellow first, and then I taped off all the letters and then painted over it blue, and then just peeled back the clean edge tape and had the letters underneath. And all he did was just lean over and he would always stroke that beard. Pretty interesting, pretty good technique. You know, that stuck. You know, because a little bit of just that. He's just walking through and just caught his attention, and he focused on that. But yeah,
he was an outstanding teacher. He was an outstanding artist.
Yeah, him, and I still talk to Heather. Heather. I'm probably going to pick up a couple paintings of hers before too long, because I want to put some in the house. I'm going to try to get with you and get some too, because I'm trying to find things that are of inspiration that you see. That's what everything's surrounded in this room.
Sure.
And but Marty B passed a couple years ago.
Wow.
I'm trying to find Larry Shue. I don't know where he's.
I have a print of Larry's. Larry was the king of no personal space.
Yeah. God, yes.
Right here to talk to you, man.
He would lean in. He'd lean in.
Get away. Yeah, you couldn't get away from it. You back up, he'd follow you around, man. You could not get away. I finally got comfortable with it. It took me a long time to get comfortable with it.
A couple of years.
He was right here.
Used to it. And he had, remember the van? He had a Volkswagen van. And we'd drive all around town, because he'd like to bring us out and draw somewhere in town. We would just stay in the classroom, and we'd always go to the railroad tracks and go contact, and then go up out of the land.
Monotype. I had a monotype class, a monoprint class with him.
Great pen work. He had the little Carmen Ghia in your car, guy. So he had the little Volkswagen Carmen Ghia.
Yeah.
But Heather still paints. She does wonderful. And then, Marty, like I said, Marty B passed away a little bit ago. And then, but I still try to, I was trying to track everybody down and just kind of see what they were up to these days.
What everybody's doing.
Yeah. But thanks again for hanging out with us. And
Mike, is very nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, sir.
I'll have to follow some of y'all's. I've watched some of y'all's podcast tape. I think Kevin sent me one, so I'll have to.
Yep.
I'll have to start being a better watcher, and I'll post some more of my artwork there. Maybe you pick up on the next couple pieces I do, and we'll.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. We'd love to do it. But yeah, this is going to get simulcast. The whole team simulcast it out, and then if you see on the bottom of the ad. You can tell everybody. You can pick up on all these. I mean, it's played back through Spotify, iHeart, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pandora. We're on Amazon, all those different places. It gets simulcast out through, so they'll be able to chance to tune in, and you say, hey, I'm going to be on Amazon Music next week. So you'll be out there and about. So yeah, good time.
Well, thanks a lot, man. I sure enjoyed it. And hey, thanks for getting Tommy on too. That was fantastic. I
was trying to find people and scurrying around, and some of us have kept up with each other, and some of us haven't. And I was kind of reaching out and finding people, and they were sending back, stuff. And then, Ron, as always, we talk music all the time. And
I'd forgotten about Tammy running over his foot.
Oh yeah,
I'd forgotten completely about that till you brought that up.
Yeah, well, that's when I told him. He just said, "Oh yeah, I remember that," because we were talking in the green room before you came on. Before you came on, Mike. One of the stories that we remember, I want to say it was Lagrange competition.
Yeah, I think so. Tommy
was getting some of the back out of somebody's car, and she backed up for some reason.
Yeah.
And he's, you can't march with a twisted foot. I don't think it broke it. I think it sprained it really bad. And like you said, he can still feel that.
Tammy was not really. She was a touch oblivious sometimes. So it wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising that she almost killed him.
No. But yeah, that was before competition one time. So yeah, it was he still remember that. But yeah, man, he's doing great. Ron's doing great. Everybody's kind of really branched out and kind of doing their own thing.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. It's really cool to see. It's really cool to see that. It's really cool to see how successful you are, and Tommy, and all these other guys. Some of the drummers, like some of the first couple of groups of Black Watch. One of them, he's retired now. He just sold a business he and his buddy sold a business for $25 million, something. Yeah. Sporting goods, fishing lures. Like, how'd you get into fishing lures? You know, and it was really impressive to talk to you guys and see y'all successful. It makes you feel like you accomplished something. If you accomplish nothing else in life, somewhere there's somebody that you helped out in some, but you thought at the time was insignificant way that turned out to be something very, very successful. So I appreciate you recognizing that, and I hope you guys, I'm sure you've done that for other people, and I'm sure there are other people that appreciate the mentorship that you've given them. So
I appreciate it, and you're in good company. You're in good company being on the show. I mean, we've had people on like Kevin Eastman, creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We've had different people on the way that have been very, very big in the business. That we're just a few guys that like kind of getting together and talking about art and music and comics, and it was kind of cool. Crazy to see that they would come on the show, and the co-creator of Bane, Chuck Dixon. All these people, and Chuck's just like, he's just kind of retired in Florida and likes to just kind of hang out, and he's going to come co-host some shows sometime. If you ever want to kind of come on and co-host some shows, because when we launched Voodoo Lounge, which is the one that you did the backdrop for, it's going to be more music oriented. So we'll be talking about more music and art. And I can
tell my story about playing the cymbals on the Rocky IV soundtrack.
Oh, there you go. That's awesome.
By the way, to this day, I still get residuals on.
Did you really? I never knew that before. I learned something new about that. So.
Tom Hager over at Lake Charles Music calls me up one night and he goes, "Hey man, Vince is a buddy of his, is sold his soundtrack to Rocky IV to Stallone. They really like it, so we got to fatten up some of the tracks. So you want to come in? We need a crash cymbal player." I said, "Sure, I'll go play crash cymbals." So I go by the band hall, I grab a pair of crash cymbals. So I spent 3 hours working on these two tunes. The one where he trains in the snow, lifts the box of rocks, and then the fight scene. And the fight when they had to redo the music to match the action, which it kind of sucks, but the album version of it is phenomenal. And so I go in there, man, I'm crashing on these things. And I was Michael McDonald's drummer had played the actual kit track, and I was crashing this stuff on top of it. And so I got paid. I didn't think anything else of it. And a couple of years later, I move off to Texas. One day I get this envelope, been pushed all over the place. It's all these residual checks for writing. Oh, wow. And I get about, depending on when he'll do Creed, and then they'll play all the Rocky movies again, and I'll get like $15 or something. It's just cool. It's just one of those cool things in life,
That's cool. That is cool.
It's a good story anyway. Well, you guys take care, man, and I really enjoy it. Mike, again, get your house up on stilts. Hurricane season's coming here a little bit.
Exactly.
I don't want you to be blowing off.
It's no accident that I'm as far away from as I could possibly get. I snuck up to the corner of America to just completely bypass hurricanes.
And you see Chris Parker? You see Chris Parker trucking around the country. You tell him to haul his butt down here and find me so I can say hi to him.
We'll see if we can get together for the 50th. We'll see if we can make that happen. I'll talk to Chris after the show, and I'll pass him your contact info and have him look you up. So
that'd be fantastic. And if I'm ever up in Washington, I'll look you up.
Look us up, man. We'd be happy to have you. So,
all right, man. Well, y'all take care, buddy.
Take care.
I enjoyed it, man. It was fantastic.
It was a blast. It was a blast catching up. Take care.
Professor Morris, everybody.
Oh, man. That was fun. That was fun reminiscing.
Sorry I wasn't mute for most of the time, but, I wasn't there for a lot of this. I was just having fun.
I know. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, Mike's gonna be bored. He's gonna be, but I figured
it's cool, man. Like he doesn't have the same chops as kind of like the theme and premise of kind of the normal talent that we have coming on the show. But when you look back to it, and I was thinking about this while you guys were talking, I was like,
it ties, doesn't it? Ties together.
A long time ago, in a podcast that hadn't been created yet, Comic Camaraderie was born. Like you learn the premise of the thematic tones of Comic Camaraderie like way before you even got into comics and design, and it all started in music, which
it did.
It did. So it's kind of like it's an even greater circle come around that we talked about the other day, which I thought was really nice, man. That's kind of cool.
It was that, and that's why I wanted you to kind of come in and check it out, because like I said, when I look back on it, I was like, you know what? There was a lot of influence back in those days, because like I said, we always talk, everybody's always reaching back to their inspirations on the show. And I was like, you know what? Let me do some self kind of reflection real quick and kind of, get somebody on that kind of really had an impact. And it's so interesting to hear him unwind about the creative nature of things, how it just kind of carries from one thing to the other, and it carries through in writing, like you said, the poetry, So as you write things, you're putting that, you're working that kind of magic and creating in that same force in art, same force in music. It's just that creative nature, and it's no accident, like you said, that you do certain things with it. The problem solving is what I do in all aspects of my life. So, and it's crazy because it will come a point in time where Inked will overrun what is going on now. But like any other artist out there, you have your day gig and then you have your art stuff. And every creator we talk to, even the creators that are just huge, absolutely huge, they have their creative stuff and they have a day gig. There's always that, that other piece of it. So, but it was nice because I caught up with Morris a few years ago, and it was right before he got back into painting. And we talked a lot about stuff, and this was right when the formation of it was starting to happen for Inked and starting to take off. And we talked a lot about art and a lot about, creativity and the forces of, and that, like you said, that energy. So I kind of wanted to that's why I wanted to bring it on the show and have that kind of that talk about what all that does. And
Walt's energy was definitely there.
It was, and it was, and then I had a conversation with somebody earlier before the show, and I was talking about, in the world of indie, that there's not enough of people coming together and that energy back and forth that helps each other, and that whole all ships rise together, which you hear Monty say a lot of times. That's where I got that from, is Monty saying about the all ships, and that's a good phrase, and I know that's been talked about in other venues.
I said that to Dan today.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about it, and that's the way to do it, because there's so many people that view other comics or other artists or other creators or other ad firms or other whatever
as competition.
Tribe.
Everybody puts themselves in tribes.
That's not the way I've ever looked at it, and that's what I tell people all the time, because they ask about, well, who do you think sits in we don't compete with anybody. We compete with our own goals and our own things that we want to do. And then when it's awesome to me, everybody out there listening on this, when I get the chance to sit back and see everybody on the Ink team collaborating together. This person brings this. Pretty soon they're doing books together. They're doing this together, that together. They're talking about other things, and it's just, that's an awesome feeling to be charged in that energy. And that's why a lot of times, I still kind of go back to the atomic stuff, right? It's all about that fission. It's all about that this particle bangs this particle, and all of it together just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And you just redirect that force and come up with something very creative and very fun. So
absolutely. Life on a subatomic level.
It does. It all comes full circle. And we just, again, appreciate everybody for this right here. The 1 year anniversary, and this was the 42nd episode. The reason it's not 56, right, is because we took the holiday season off. We took Christmas off, and everybody kind of chilled and enjoyed time with their family. And we kind of took a check on whatever we needed to do for the next year. And we ran the best of episodes. So it was great to look back and say, wow, man, 42, we're not the oldest, out there by any means. We're a young podcast.
Right.
But to get a year under our belt, it felt good. It was a good thing to see that. And of course, the memory popped up on Facebook. Hey, on the 15th of February, episode 1 aired. And I was like, man, yeah, wow, it just brings me back.
I've been looking forward to that in June. I think it was.
June. See, there you go, and we'll have a good celebration about that. But
it was like watching a lecture, honestly. So I wasn't really bored. I was actually, because he was saying a lot of things that teachers have said. I've heard repeatedly in my own experience. One experience I did have was he's passed away now for several years, but my auto body teacher, his name was Mr. Cook.
Yeah.
And Southern is all get out.
Southern's a day is long.
I'd rather not say for sensibilities, but he would agree, and it wouldn't be insensitive or improper to say, but I'm just going to avoid it. But one thing, he sat us all down because Hurricane Katrina happened that year. So our shop was kind of banged up. So we had to do book work. And so instead of book work, he'd give us homework, but he talked a lot. He talked to us a lot about like philosophical points of view, and kind of like, you know, what everybody was doing and kind of like how you should live. And one of the first things he said, he gave us a big lecture one day, and he was on Zoloft too. He had a concentration problem, so I'm pretty sure this was an effect of the medicine. But he gave us a big lecture one day, and he said before we all left, and I'll never forget this. Is like, before you leave that room, you'll forget everything I said because you're all that stupid. And he didn't say that to be disrespectful. He just wanted to point out that we're young and we should be thinking about young things, but also be keeping in mind that has drastic effects on us later on in life. Well, and that was one of the things that always stuck with me.
Yeah, it does. And you got to, and the thing, and I go back to, and I'll show these again real quick. This taught me this part right here, doing this, right? And people pick at band people. They're like, oh, you know, this, that, and the other. And then they make fun of you for being in band. And I'm like, well, you know what? And I was a very popular kid in school, and I'm not saying that to be snooty or anything. I just, being an artist, I blended in well. So, but this, when we were told that, and this rate, that structure, that taught me how to work with other people, how to be, you know, how to bring out the best in each other. And like, you know, I told a story about Jamie. You know, Jamie and I would just push each other, and we'd have words. But at the end of the day, we were all friends. You know, we didn't do it in a way that was hurtful. It was competition. And, you know, you run off at the mouth in high school, right? You just have that edge. But this part right here, this structure taught me how to work as a unit, right? And, you know, different people have mentioned stuff about team building. You know, I talked about that before. Yeah. This was the first groupings of the team building, of knowing that we worked a unit within a unit, that everybody dressed in black was the drum corps. And you see Lisa standing down there in front, who came on earlier. You know, she was the major, she, you know, directed the whole thing. And you had to take direction, right? And then you had to be a unit within a unit, which was the drum corps. So, you know, these 12 or 15 people all fed off of each other's energy. And that all, like I said, tied right back around with, you know, being able to do what we do today. Same thing with the book, right? You work as a unit, you know, penciler, inker, letterer, colorist, you know, it's all a unit, right? So that's how we operate.
Stuff and the idea, and everybody's got to hone in on it. So bring it to life, just like music.
And you got to be that way to me as a group. And I know sometimes that's frowned upon, and sometimes people fuss about it, and sometimes people get all competitive. We're all doing stuff that's creative, right? So just,
it's crazy too, because we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, and there's room for everybody.
Right.
They just got to kind of shake that loose for a second, man. And if people would spend less time throwing rocks at each other, and find ways to uplift each other. And I'm not trying to be philosophical about it. I'm just trying to state that if we'd have done that if we'd have thrown rocks at each other in the band, you wouldn't hear about the stories you're hearing about the legendary. Again, he bumped into people 15 years. Okay. A whole cycle of kids came through, right? A whole graduating from 1st to 12th grade came through, and they still knew who Black Watch was, right? Because that's just how we were carried ourselves. Morris is the one that taught us that. He taught us how to carry ourselves and how to be respectful of people, you know, and I'll forever be thankful for that. And the like you said, the little pieces along the way, and the nuggets of wisdom they would drop. And it's great. It was great to hear all those again and reminisce. And I had forgotten about, you know, Larry's lack of personal space, right? And he's talked about Larry would just and you would catch yourself kind of just leaning back, trying to get away from him in class, and you wouldn't do it. And that's another one I got to look up. So good times. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. I know this was a different show for people. And again, this was just more of a, you know, like I said, art and creativity. But again, it ties back to, again, what we do, creative, right? And that can be whether you're a writer, you know, a letter, an ink, you know, inking, whatever you're doing to be a part of the team, work as a unit, right? You all have a common goal. You're all trying to get something out, and just use that force, capture it all up, bottle it all up, and put out something creative, and then help out your fellow creator. Don't throw rocks. Help take a rock and build a castle out of it. You know,
if you are wasting your life away at a day job or a 9 to 5, and you don't feel like you're putting your best foot forward in something you really want to do, just change it.
Yeah.
Just change it.
I do this podcast with you. I also do my own podcast. I write during the day. I watch my 4-year-old. I still have a 9 to 5. I do stuff for Ink Marketing, and I do editing freelance. Like, I do a lot of things, and I don't make excuses for it anymore. Before, I used to be like 9 to 5, and then like, oh, I come home. Oh, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. If you keep saying that over and over and over, you're never going to do it until you just do it.
You got so much time on this planet, and like I said, I'll go every time. I'll straight up say my wife is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, because she's the one. And it takes a good person, it takes a good mate to be in your life to power you up, right, to energize you. And her saying get out there, and she's always encouraging. Like I said, she's the GM for the business, and I wouldn't pick anybody else to do it. She keeps that stuff driving. I mean, we meet. I'm meeting with her all the time, right? So there's no not talking to the GM. It might come into supper. It might come into on the way we're walking or going somewhere, or going out for a walk or traveling somewhere. We'll start talking about work, But she keeps me focused in that, and she's that positive force. She's that she's one of the arms of Ink that Ink can't do without. Honestly.
And that's the best thing about social media, period. Like, the most positive thing is, like, before, you used to have to go out and find what you wanted to do and find people who liked what you wanted to do. And then you'd have to be there. And that required a certain amount of, I got to have a car. I got to have somebody drop me off. Now, all you need is a phone. You could find groups out there, join groups of people who are aligned with your goals and your likes and wants. And man, I can't tell you how many people I've met doing podcasting, just making a comic, and how willing creators are to get out there and talk about it.
I think we have one of the most powerful groups out there, honestly. I just feel that. I feel that the Ink team is one of the strongest teams out there. We believe in what we do. We believe in other creators. We uplift other creators, and that's a positive thing. And I think that's a shining light out there. And that's why, campaign after campaign, keep coming back. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the team. I'm proud of everything that they do. I'm proud of hearing, there was a podcast that, one of the team members put on last night, which is Chuck Panu. And Chuck put out a podcast. He said, hey man, he said, anybody that's got a book right now, he said, I don't have a book going right now. He said, but anybody that's got a book right now and wants to pop on and talk comics let's all get together. And there was probably 15 different creators that went on the show. And out of those 15, 4 of them had to do with us, right? And that was kind of like, I was like, wow, So I jumped on when he told me about it, and I was there. I got a chance to, talk with Morgan about what he had going on with his book, Shadow's Daughter, which is still out there right now. Got a chance to talk with Paul about his book with, Cryptic Haze, and then, got a chance to talk about American Kaiju with Edgar. So all 3 of those books are still active books and still out there just getting it done. And then Beguile's about to come up for Chuck. So we got to sit there and talk about all those books. I probably spent 2 hours last night just hanging out with everybody and talking comics. And that was just an impromptu thing. And that was just, Chuck giving back to it. Travis Gibbs does this a lot, right? He kind of brings everybody together.
On Wednesday. Yeah, he does it all the time, man. He's super promo when it comes to pushing new creators.
That's what I love, man. I love that. I love seeing people do that. So that's, but if you love what we do and you want to hear more about it, come check us out. We'll end on this. Later.
For more fun-filled episodes, come visit our website, www.comicrodery.com.